Well, we're glad that you're with us this morning. It's Saturday morning, and if you live around here, you may be floating away. I don't know what it looks like in town yet. When the rain quits, I'm going to go get a couple of things for tomorrow. Having a breakfast between the early service and the regular service on Easter morning. It's probably rained over 3 inches overnight. The rain started, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock last night. Hadn't quit since. Had some pretty good thunderstorms. Shook the place, but nothing fell on it. We're very grateful again, but we got 2 more rounds of this. We got today and tomorrow, both red alert days. So, God knows where I'm at, and if we wash away, He'll know where we're at then too. We're glad that you're with us today. We should finish chapter 5 of Isaiah today. I threatened to do that yesterday, but I was woefully overeager because we didn't even get close. But we will today. Beginning yesterday. I want to remind you, go to church tomorrow. Invite somebody to church tomorrow. Whatever you have to do. Don't go alone. Take people to church with you. As we tell people about Jesus, it's a good time of year to do it. A celebration of His resurrection. Of course, I'm not much into special days, and I never have been, and everybody who knows me knows that is true, because most special days come from paganism, and we dress them up in Christian terms and stuff, but I still don't know any bunnies that lay eggs, but that's beside the point. Point is that we celebrate, not only celebrate the resurrection of Jesus every Sunday, we celebrate it every day. There's no special day anymore. That was nailed to the cross. You want to have a special day, go ahead. We'll be having a special day at Victory Baptist Church tomorrow. It's special because I'm going to preach early, and then we're going to eat, and then Danny's going to preach. It'll be wonderful. And we'll be talking about the risen Lord. That's always good, but as I say, I talk about it every day. And so should you. We'll pick up where we left off yesterday. We explored the 6th woe yesterday, the 6 of 6 woes. The woe to them that join house to house, the woe to them that rise up early in the morning to drink, the woe to them that draw iniquity, the woe to them that call evil good, the woe to them that are wise in their own eyes, and now, yesterday, the woe to them that justify the wicked. Verse 22, woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, men of strong drink, to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward. In other words, they're paid off. In the radio business, we called that payola. I got in on the tail end of that. You would take your 45 record to a DJ in a big city and put a $50 or $100 bill in his hand when you shook hands with him, and your record would probably get played. Those days are gone. They tell us they're gone. I think they're gone because the DJs are almost gone. Everything is like piped in from somewhere else for most of the programming. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward, and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. Therefore, as the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame consumeth the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossoms shall go up as dust. because they have cast away the law of the Lord of hosts and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. There is therefore this anger of the Lord kindled against his people, and he has stretched forth his hand against them, and has smitten them, and the hills did tremble, and their carcasses were torn in the midst of the streets. And for all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And when we see this phrase, his hand is stretched out still, in the early chapters of Isaiah's prophecy, God is not reaching out his hand to take yours in friendship. He's not reaching down his hand to pluck you out of the fire and save you. He is reaching out his hand in judgment. And the outstretched hand is like he's pointing at you. I'm judging you. That's what it is. Singling out for judgment. His hand is stretched out still because of the sins that they've sinned, and that's why he will not turn his anger away in the day of wrath judgment. All along in our teaching, I've explained to you that the judgment always comes in three phases. It was the same in Israel, it was the same in Judah, and it's the same on us now. Well, why, Brother Harris? We're not Jews. No, but those pious men and women, those Puritans that came over, landed at Plymouth Rock, 1620, made a covenant with the Lord for the land. Not a government, not a flag, not rah, 1776. Down with the British, no. Didn't have anything to do with that. These people saw themselves as citizens of heaven, and they dedicated the land to God as a shining city on a hill if God would preserve them. That made a covenant people, not the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution. All that came later by men, just regular men. But these were holy men and women. They dedicated themselves to God. They fled the persecution in Europe. The Catholic Church had been hanging them for years, and then the Anglican Church had been hanging them ever since and persecuting them because they would not comply. They would be loyal to the king and would remain loyal to the king only if he left them alone. So they came to the United States to be left alone, not with themselves, but with God. So the judgment sequence applies to us as well. The judgment comes in three phases. Well, first, the reasons for judgment. The reasons for judgment are always the same. There are three. It's the same in Israel. It's the same in Judah. It's the same here now. They went a-whoring after other gods. That's one. They sacrificed their children. That's two. And they believed the lies of false prophets. That's three. The judgments come in three waves or stages. Same for Israel, same for Judah, same for the land that became the United States of America. The covenant is not with the United States of America or with Canada or any other government on this land. It was the land itself with whom God made, for whom God made that covenant with Winthrop and his Puritans at Plymouth Rock. We call them pilgrims. They were Puritans escaping the tyranny of the king and the Anglican Church in England. The three phases of the judgment are always the same. Remedial judgments, that's where you judge a people to get them to turn back to God. God judges them to get them to turn their face away from their idols, to turn to God from idols, to abandon their idols, to cast them to the bats in the dark, in the caves, and turn to God from their blasphemies and their idolatries and their sorceries and their fornications. Our remedial judgment began on November 22nd, 1963. Our remedial judgment ended and the punitive judgment began. Punitive means punishment. We started being punishment because we would not return to God. Started being punished. He started punishing us directly for not returning to Him. That began on the remedial judgments ended. The punitive judgments began on September 11th, 2001. Now, they will go on until the wrath judgments. The wrath judgments will start at one time, and that's where God has made up His mind and He's cut you off and He's going to destroy you. I believe that the wrath judgment has already begun. And I'm not sure exactly when it began, but I can look around at people, government, finance, our relationships with the world and everything else, and know that we're under God's wrath judgment right now. It's not individual people, and it's not the tribulation. That's the wrath of man. That's not the wrath of God. This is national wrath against America by God, and I believe it began probably in 2015 with the same-sex marriage decision, but it could have been stayed from then. I don't know. I just believe that it has already begun, and if it hasn't, it's going to start at any time, because I can see the signs of the wrath judgment upon the nation. But sometimes you can see the signs before the judgment actually falls. Just like now, we're seeing signs of the Great Tribulation, but we won't be here for the Great Tribulation. If the Great Tribulation is close, the rapture must be very near. So, that is how and when and why and through what process God judges. It's never altered. There are no exceptions. That's what the Bible teaches. All right, today's lesson, chapter 5, verse 26. And He, God, will lift up an ensign to the nations from far, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed swiftly, and none shall be weary or stumble among them. He's talking about bringing judgment upon the nation, another army, and other people to destroy Israel first in 732 BC by the Assyrians, and then Judah second in 586 BC by the Babylonians. But the process is the same and will be the same with us, and will happen very soon. God will lift up the ensign to the nations from far. He will hiss unto them from the ends of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed swiftly. And this refers, I'm going to save the first phrase until we finish reading all the verses, because it looks backward and it looks forward too. But when they come from the ends of the earth, it's to take a land captive, to take Israel captive, to take Judah captive. Verse 27, none shall be weary nor stumble among them. They'll be like super soldiers. None shall slumber nor sleep, neither shall the girdle of his loins be loosed, nor the latchet of their shoes broken. They're going to sleep in their clothes. They're going to keep going. They're going to sleep on their horses. Nothing's going to stop them. They're going to keep coming. Whose arrows are sharp and all their bows bent, their horses' hooves shall be counted like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. their chariots will be such great engines of war that you won't be able to stop them. The roaring shall be like a lion. They shall roar like young lions. Yea, they shall roar and shall lay hold of the prey and shall carry it away safe, and none shall deliver it. And that's when the captivity comes, the destruction and the captivity. Remember, he's predicting Israel, whose capital is Samaria, 732 BC, false the Assyrians. Judah, the southern kingdom, whose capital is Jerusalem, who falls to the Babylonians in 586 BC. And the fall date for the United States, soon. I don't know how soon, but the wrath judgment has begun, I'm convinced. And in that day they shall roar against them like the roaring of the sea. And if one look unto the land, behold, darkness and sorrow, and the light of the darkened in the heavens thereof. And the light will even go out of heaven. Now, God is talking about captivity. It says, raise an ensign, raise a flag. Here's a banner. It's like shop here. It's like a sign saying, come here and take these people captive. God describes this in Deuteronomy chapter 28. What will happen when Israel turns their backs on the Lord? What happens to them then? It says that verse 47. Good morning, Diane. Verse 47 of Deuteronomy 28. He's warning Israel on the banks of the Jordan, there at Kadesh Barnea, what it's going to be like if they enter the land and forget their God and follow the gods of the land like Baal and Chemosh and Molech and Ashtoreth, which they did eventually. Verse 47, God speaks through Moses, because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness, with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee. Good morning, Rick. In hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed. Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or the flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. He shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedst throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body. Cannibalism. And the flesh of thy sons and daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege, and the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. You know, this happened in Israel before God sent them into captivity. In 2 Kings 6, during the years of the ministry of Elisha, verse 24. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. This is before the reign of the Assyrians. This was just the nation of Syria. It's in the same place as modern Syria, except it was quite a bit larger then and included parts of Iraq and southern Turkey. And there was a great famine in Samaria, the capital of Israel. And behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of doves done for 5 pieces of silver. They were selling bird poop for people to eat. I think there comes a time when you have to say that the larder is empty. And as the king of Israel, verse 26, chapter 6, 2 Kings. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, when shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, out of the wine press, they're empty. But he must have had a little bit of sympathy for her, because he said, in verse 28, and the king said unto her, What aileth thee? Well, she didn't have to say she was hungry. They were all hungry. And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. Share and share alike, right? So we boiled my son. Yeah, that's what happened. So we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her the next day, Give thy son that we may eat. And she hath hid her son. And it came to pass when the king heard these words of the women, he rent his clothes and passed by upon the wall. The king looked, and behold, he had sackcloth upon his flesh. The prediction that they would eat their own young was fulfilled. Verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate as I shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him of the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine eyes shall distress thee in all thy gates. And it goes on. It says he would scatter them far and away. They would be slaves. They would be captives. And that's what Isaiah is fixing to happen in these curses that came upon the earth. And he's talking to Israel, and he's talking to Judah, and by extension, he's talking to us. Israel went whoring after other gods, specifically Baal and Ashtoreth. then they sacrificed their children. They ate some of them. Mostly they burned them as human sacrifice to Molech and Ashtoreth. Good morning, Tyler. And they believed the lies of false prophets, because all the wicked kings, there was never a good king of Israel, the northern kingdom. There were several good kings of the southern kingdom, godly kings of Judah, where Jerusalem is the capital, but not in the northern capital, northern country of Israel, nation of Israel. So they believed the lies of the false prophets, and all of the ungodly kings had false prophets and false priests, and they worshipped Balaam and Chemosh. In Judah, there was a lot of Baal worship during the time of Jeremiah, when Babylon finally came and destroyed Jerusalem. But their main hung up was ancient Babylonian worship. What they did is they worshipped Semiramis and Tammuz, the Queen of Heaven. In the Egyptian, it was Isis and Horus, but it's the same mother-child death cult that began in Babylon between Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. See, the mother-child cult is just to distract people from the real thing. Yeah, the most, every false religion has the mother-child cult, the goddess and the child. It's all feminine. It's all crazy witchcraft and sorcery and trying to bend reality, shape your own reality, create God in your own image. It's all Babylon. The worship of the earth and the planets and goddesses and nature and snakes and crocodiles, for heaven's sake, and dragons, because they're going to worship that old dragon, the old serpent, Satan, the devil. And they don't even realize they're doing it, but that's what it is. The most visible and widespread worship of the mother-child cult, which began in Babylon, ancient Babylon, Babel, is Roman Catholicism with the worship of Mary. It's part of the mother-child cult. They don't have a Jesus risen from the grave that can save them. Matter of fact, they leave him hanging on a cross over their crackers and juice, over the host, over wafer that automatically, that magically, mystically becomes his blood and body. It's just unreal, and it's not what the Bible teaches. In Israel and Judah alike, they were ensnared by the mother-child cult. And we are too. Only we don't do it quite the same way. We do it in public life instead of religious life, because America is secularism. The religion that we had for so long was like a general Christianity, a cultural Christianity. But now we have succumbed to the mother-child cult, mostly in politics and society, because part of the judgment that God, through Isaiah, promised, part of the judgment that he promised upon Israel and Judah and us, again, by extension, is this. We studied this in depth several weeks ago, Isaiah chapter 3, beginning in verse 12. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. That is the greatest shame a nation can have. Now, I don't know why it's like that, but that was part of God's judgment and part of the reason he does judge. See, our sin is not the only reason he judges us. His righteousness is the other reason. He can't stand injustice, so he judges because he is just. Shall not the judge of all the world do right? But part of the actual judgment that he places on the people is having women and kids make all the decisions and destroying men. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. I don't want anybody to be mistreated. I don't want anybody to be pushed around, man, woman, or child. But when women and children take over a role that they're not supposed to have, there's going to be chaos. It's always like it. It was like that in Israel. It's like that in Judah. It's like that here now. But there is hope after the captivity. Because there will come a time when he will lift up an ensign over the land of Israel. And it won't be for another country to come and invade. It won't be for another country to come and lead them away captive. It won't be for another war, for another death, for another famine. It'll be for a regathering of Israel. Now, Ezekiel excuse me, Ezekiel will detail all the particulars. You go into very extensive detail in chapters 36 and 37 of Ezekiel. But the prophecy was fulfilled and is continuing to be fulfilled now in Israel. But the prophecy the fulfillment began on May 14th, 1948, with the regathering of Israel. He set up this has already been fulfilled, but only in part, because it will have its ultimate fulfillment directly after the Battle of Armageddon, and the 45 to 70 days, depending on how you count them, between the Battle of Armageddon and the actual setting up of the millennial kingdom. I tend to fall with the longer number, and I base that on Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law says if something can go wrong, it will. Well, a corollary to Murphy's Law is everything takes longer than you think. And so, but at some point after Jesus' return, the complete fulfillment, now the partial fulfillment, May 14th, 1948, the establishment of the nation of Israel. Israel's been going back ever since. A couple of years ago, for the first time since the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, there are more Jews in Israel than there are outside of Israel in the world. There's only about 16 million Jews in the world right now. And it's kind of hard to count them. The number ranges as high as 18, but be that as it may, there are between 9 and 10 million Jews living in Israel now, and that outnumbers that is a majority of the Jews in the world. So that gathering began, but there's going to be a total regathering during that period of time, that short period of time between the Battle of Armageddon and the setting up of the Messianic kingdom. And that is the time Paul speaks of in Romans chapter 9, verse 26, when he says, and then all Israel shall be saved at that time, at that point. Not every Jew in the world, but all of the remnant of national Israel that is alive when Jesus returns, that he is preserved supernaturally through the Great Tribulation. They will be saved. They'll get saved the same way you and I did. They'll see their Messiah and they'll believe. There are no two plans for salvation. There's only one. But they will believe en masse. That's taught in Zechariah chapters 12 and 13. Now, chapter 11 of Isaiah is just a one-verse synopsis of what happens in Ezekiel 36 and 37. What had begun to happen in Israel in 1948 and what continues to happen in Israel, and what will eventually have its fulfillment after the Battle of Armageddon. Here's another ensign that he shall raise. The first ensign he raises in Isaiah 5 is to call the nations to come and take Israel captive and to take Judah captive, to destroy the countries, to destroy the temple, to haul them all away as slaves. That was a banner. Raise the banner, raise the ensign, raise my Ebenezer. Well, there's going to come a time when God is going to raise another banner. And he already has, actually. But the fulfillment won't be until right immediately after. The complete fulfillment won't be until right after the Great Tribulation. Verse 12 of chapter 11, the book of the prophet Isaiah. And he, God, well, let's just back up a little bit so that we can have it in full context. Isaiah 11, verse 10. And in that day, what day? The day of Jacob's trouble. There shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. That's Jesus. Jesus is the root of Jesse. He is the branch. He's the son of David. Charlie, God bless you. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and they did, and we do. And his rest shall be glorious. That actually what this means is his rest is glory. The rest that he gives us is our glory, is his glory. You see, our rest is to be in his glory. By him being glorious, by him sharing his glory with us, that gives us rest. And of course, he is our Sabbath rest, eternally. Now, verse 11, chapter 11, Isaiah, and it shall come to pass in that day, what day? The day of Jacob's trouble. The day of the Lord, that the Lord shall set his hand against the second time, to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left. The second time. The first time was May 1948. It goes, no, they did it after the Babylon captivity. No, that's not what he's talking about. Because he's talking about Israel and Judah, which will be made clear in verse 12. He's talking about Israel and Judah. Israel has never been brought back. The ensign had never been raised. Israel did not come back from Assyrian captivity, and only a few Jews, less than 50,000, returned to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple out of their Babylonian captivity under the orders of King Cyrus the Persian. This is yet future. When he says he's going to do it the second time, that means the second time after 1948, beloved. Hallelujah. you have seen and are seeing prophecy being fulfilled in your lifetime. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, and from Pathros, from Cush, and from Elam. That's in Iran. And from Shinar, that's Babylon. And from Hamath, Assyria, and from the islands of the sea. And he, God, shall set up an ensign for all nations, not to come and destroy Israel and Judah, but to return to Israel and Judah. And God shall set up an ensign, verse 12, chapter 11, Isaiah. And God shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah. He's doing it, all of them together, from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart. It means there won't be any more trouble between Israel and Judah. No more trouble between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. There'll be one people. Just like Banes and Blands, when they twisted the sticks together to show that Israel and Judah would be one people again. And the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. The north, Israel shall not vex Judah. Judah shall not vex Israel. There'll be no more war, no more strife between the northern and southern kingdom. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. They're going to take over all the country that their father David had, and then some. It'll be the whole land that God promised Abram, the refugee pagan who fled Ur of the Chaldees, which was Babylon. And the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind he shall shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the seven streams, and make men go over dry shod. And there shall be an highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Syria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. Assyria is also on the northern edge of the plain of Shinar. It's all Babylon, even though there were different city-states. Right there in the Fertile Crescent between the Euphrates and Tigris River, although Syria, Nineveh proper, the capital, was on the east side of the Tigris River, the eastern river, but their empire spread far. It spread all the way to the Mediterranean, in fact, when they took the northern kingdom captive. So in that day, the flag is going to be raised for all the Jews to come back, and if you're holding any Jews, bring them back. It's going to be during that little gap of time between the Battle of Armageddon and the setting up of the kingdom. Roughly 70 days. You know, I really have fun talking about all this stuff. We've reached the end of chapter 5. Chapter 6 is one of my favorite chapters. It's like a flashback to the beginning of Isaiah's ministry when he was called to bring the Word of God. Thanks for being with me today. I'm grateful that you come and watch this program. I made a post last night about this just to said about I was going to change the schedule. The program I was doing at night it's just too much. I'm too busy and I don't have the time to refresh my memory the way I should. And in 5 nights, I made 2 glaring mistakes that I had to go back and correct because I was just not keeping my notes straight. And I apologized and gave the correct information in the comments, but there may be some people walking around who I misled by a comment or two. So what I'm going to do is like I've done before, because this is not the first time I've tried to do 2 programs a day, because the desire to do it and the compulsion to do it was upon me. I felt like God wanted me to. But the reality is God doesn't want me to do something that I'm unable to do. And after a week, nearly a week, I was seeing that I was dropping the ball a little bit in the program. So I will concentrate, as I was before, on refreshing my memory on the lesson for the next day and going over my notes and being able to present it clear and without distraction. And so for a time, we're just going to have the morning program. We're going to continue the verse by verse study of Isaiah. We'll be in chapter 6 tomorrow. And I will come back to the discussion of Babylon at some other time. Although before we get through with Isaiah, I'll be talking about Babylon a lot because it plays a large part in Isaiah's prophecies. So a lot of the things that I might have said on the nightly program about the rivers of Babylon, I'm going to be bringing out in Isaiah, just like when I taught Jeremiah for a year and 2 months. There was so much about Babylon, I brought out all kinds of things about Babylon. And so it could be that evening program was repetitive. I don't know. I can't remember what I said 2 years ago. I don't remember what I said 2 days ago. But we have a recording of it, don't we? And I can always refresh my memory by looking. God loves you. Jesus died for you. Be happy in your preparations for church tomorrow. I hope that I have the time to talk to you in the morning. If I don't, I'll do it when I get back from church. God bless you.